Hey, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, and welcome back to another video for Borderlands 3. And today, of course, the Malawan takedown is still scheduled to drop a little bit later on. So of course, once that does go live, I'll be diving in, checking it out, trying to grab some of those new legendaries. And of course, there will be accompanying videos for you guys. But before that, Gearbox dropped a hefty amount of patch notes. This is like a huge long list of patch notes, and there's a lot of stuff to go through here. Now, to be clear, I'm not going to go through absolutely everything because we would be here for a very long time, and let's be honest, nobody wants to listen to me read like a bajillion patch notes. There's a lot of stuff over there for, you know, technical performance, some gameplay stuff, some like UI stuff. So if you want to read absolutely everything, I will of course link it down below. But what I want to focus on really are the Vault Hunter changes, because there are some things here that we have been asking for quite some time, some things that specifically revolve more so around companions, things like the Iron Bear, Digiclone, and Flack's pets, which, you know, while yes, you can of course create builds around those even now, you can of course, you know, get some value out of them. It's of course fair to say that if you're doing like serious endgame stuff, the pets don't scale as well as they should have done, the companions don't, so really when it kind of comes down to it, it heavily limits your build choices. And that is of course one of the things they want to address with this, because they've made some fundamental changes, which means if these do of course pan out as we hope, then there might well be some pretty exciting new builds, giving us a chance to make a really cool Flack pet build, a nice, you know, Flack rack build, make some good builds around the Iron Bear again, the Digiclone, lots of cool stuff to mess around with. So let's start there. To quote the blog post, they said under the endgame character balance, for this patch we adjusted many passives involving companions such as Iron Bear, Digiclone, and Flack pets in general. We wanted to increase their viability for later levels of Mayhem, whilst also targeting some passives that were underperforming compared to some others. Iron Bear saw increases to the base scaling, and additional bonuses were added through passives and augments. We allowed some of Zane's kill skill bonuses to stack up to 2 times, increasing their output under certain conditions, and Flack pets also saw some increases over level to their damage, so they didn't feel underpowered for Mayhem mode. We are currently happy with the variety of Amara's builds, but we are always monitoring feedback and will adjust if necessary. So, long story short, if you're an Amara player, there's actually no changes in this patch note for you. It is purely Moze, Zane, and Flack, because of course this largely speaking revolves around companions, and Amara is that solo brawler. But, with that being said, let's start with Moze. For Moze, Iron Bear damage has been increased per level to a total of just under 150% at max level. Desperate Measures will now give Iron Bear the bonus 2. For experimental munitions, Iron Bear will also deal bonus fire damage on critical hits. Scorching RMPs also grants increased hardpoint damage by 5% per level. Vampire, when Iron Bear deals area damage, Iron Bear receives half the healing bonus. Iron Bear will also now launch barrels when the player melees them, and it increases Iron Bear's bubble shield from 20% to 50% of Moze's health. So ideally, with this, you know, assuming it works in practice, should not only help with the damage output, but should also help with some of the survivability, be in a position whereby you shouldn't just, you know, get in your mech and then get ripped through in Mayhem 3. And of course, don't forget, in this update, Mayhem 4, of course, is a new thing, so that is also something else to contend with. As for Zane, your Sentinel drone, the damage scale has increased by 2% per level. The skills Donnybrook, Pocket Full of Grenades, Cool Hand, Violent Violence, and Violent Speed bonuses now stack twice. So bear in mind, a lot of kind of Zane stuff is kill skills, so sometimes it can be sort of a little bit hard to kind of get it set up, but then once you get going, it's really good. The fact they can now stack twice means you can of course get quite a lot of value out of those. They also fixed Violent Momentum to scale more at higher movement speeds. Best served cold radius and damage has now been increased by 2% per level. Confident Confidence has increased the max weapon damage bonus from 20% to 35%. They changed the Trick of the Light element to Cryo and increased the bonus from 18% to 36%. The borrowed time duration increases from 15% to 30% per active skill. Double Barrels bonus has now been increased from 20% to 25%. Quick Breather now restores 50% of the clone's health after a swap. The Pocket Full of Grenades bonus has slightly decreased from 6.5% to 5% since it now stacks, and the Violent Violence bonus has slightly decreased again from 4% to 3% because again, that now stacks. So some pretty interesting changes there. Honestly, cannot wait to jump in and mess around with these. I want to sort of see if this kind of drastically rechanges or reworks some of the builds, so definitely if there are some new things we start running with, if we do start putting together some tasty new builds, then I'll be sure to share those with you guys. As for Flack, you have Ambush Predator, that now has a HUD icon when the buff is active. They've increased the pet damage scale to 10% per level instead of 9%. They've added pet damage to Grim Harvest at 7% per level. They've added pet damage to the most dangerous game at 9% per level. They've added pet damage to Interplanetary Stalker at 1% per stack per level. They've added pet damage to Furious Attack at 0.6% per stack. And they've added pet damage to the Fast and the Furious at 10% per level. Lick the Wounds also gained a pet damage buff after reviving the player. They've also increased pet damage for Psycho Head on a Stick from 10% to 20%. And they've increased damage in Pack of Tactics from 5% to 7% per level. They've also adjusted Megavore to not reward critical hit bonuses when receiving damage from self-damage. So again, there's a lot of stuff here that's purely gone into piling damage into your pets. It will of course still be interesting to see whether even after the buffs it makes, say, the pet damage output rival that of your typical crit build, because that is still incredibly strong. Even after some of the adjustments and the nerfs and whatnot, it is still basically the best way to play Flack. So I definitely can't wait to check it out. I do really want to sort of put this through its paces because I did genuinely have a really nice pet build that I liked using, and it was good up until basically the very end game, and then it just didn't scale too well. So if I can basically bring that back, rework it a little bit, and it actually does a good job, then we're going to be having a lot of fun with pets with Flack. So that is of course something to look forward to. Now outside of that, a few other things worth mentioning. Again, don't forget that later on today the Malawan takedown drops. Of course with that there'll be new things to pursue. A few notes for that for those of you guys that want to know sort of how to head into it. It says that Lorelei has recruited the Vault Hunters to destroy a top secret weapon Malawan has been developing at their black site. You and your squad should prepare for an extreme challenge because this content is balanced for players at level 50. You gain access to the black site via a mission found on Sanctuary 3 after completing the main campaign with that character. So basically, go to Sanctuary 3, you're ready to go. Takedowns will feature special rules not found in the rest of the game. Respawning is disabled, so make sure you and your co-op partners get second wind or you'll be spectating until the team wipes. If you do die, you're not out permanently. If you die during the first half, you'll get to rejoin your team if they defeat the Valkyrie squad, and if you're out in the second half but your team manages to defeat Wotan the Invincible, you'll get to respawn to enjoy the rewards that you didn't completely earn. It also says to make sure that your squad is in the session before you throw the switch inside the airlock, or anyone who joins after that is thrown in as a spectator. Additionally, to accompany this, they of course have Mayhem 4. So Mayhem 4 is here for the players looking for the toughest challenge in the game. Mayhem 4 adds another increase to enemy health, it increases the loot drop chances, and adds a set of new legendaries. Because the health value greatly increased, Mayhem 4 also slightly adjusts the random modifier system. Now they will only roll with one positive modifier for the player and one bonus modifier for the enemy. We want to make sure that players do try different builds without severely hampering their ability to take down enemies in Mayhem 4. So basically you're not going to be going in and finding you have like negative weapon damage, negative elemental damage. You'll instead find out you have your own personal buff, the enemy has a buff, and that's basically what you need to work with. In addition to increasing the enemy health and adjusting the modifiers, Mayhem 4 also contains new legendary weapons and class mods for players to hunt. These new pieces of gear will contribute to new builds and new ways to kill enemies, but keep in mind those will only be found in Mayhem 4. Furthermore, to support Mayhem 4, they said they changed the Mayhem Station slightly. Players will now activate Mayhem through the center pillar and increase or decrease Mayhem levels by using the pillars each side. Looking forward, they will of course monitor the challenge of Mayhem 4 closely, and of course they're working hard on Mayhem 2.0, which is a much bigger overhaul, and that is of course stuff they'll look to talk about in the new year. Keep in mind we also have a bank expansion as well. All characters now begin the game with 20 bank slots instead of 10, and the existing bank SDUs will now give everyone a total of 100 available spaces. An additional 10 bank SDUs are available to purchase in Marcus's shop, and of course that then gives you a grand total of 300 total bank space. So there's going to be at least some space for those brand new items that we're going to be getting. Finally, the last thing worth noting is of course the dedicated loot pools for bosses. They did of course also mention that all bosses have now been updated with new loot pools that give them dedicated legendary items to drop. Players can now discover which bosses drop their favourite gear, and then you can more easily farm them. There will of course be multiple items per boss given the amount of legendaries, but at least now once you work out where, say, your face puncher comes from, for example, you can then farm that boss on repeat for a guaranteed output, which is incredibly handy. There were of course a few items that were already kind of linked to bosses, but largely speaking a lot of things were world drops, which made it incredibly frustrating to farm. So definitely looking forward to checking that out. Anyway, that's it for the time being. That is a rundown on the main character changes. Again, if you guys want to check out the rest of the patch notes for some of the smaller things like UI and balancing and gameplay changes, then feel free to give them a read. They are linked down below. But for those of you guys that are at least either Mose, Zane or Flack, then that is what you need to know about the changes to your characters. Keep it locked, because as and when the Malawan update goes live, I'll have more content for you guys. But until then, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. I really hope you guys enjoyed that video. Remember to hit that subscribe button and also click on the little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss my next upload. Also, don't forget, you can check out 269 and Paradise Central streaming over on Twitch 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. Be sure to drop by and get involved. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.